I remembered what it was. The thing I hadn't wrapped up and got too far away from. So, fear. When you don't do one thing because of fear, then you maybe won't do 10,000, 10 million things because of fear. So, at any fork in the road, if you like writing things, you could ask yourself, you could make like a little chart. I'm going to balance you on an apple. I don't have my stands yet. I should really buy some things to be a little less wobbly. If you ask yourself, what would love tell me to do and what would fear tell me to do? And then just look at that and just see. I mean, if the fear's too big, don't push yourself, I guess. But I do feel like the more we give fear control of our lives, the more we give it the steering wheel, the more it takes it. That's where anxiety comes from, in my opinion. And I mean like chronic, lifelong anxiety. If you are me, pretend you're me for a second. And when you're in 7th grade, you have a bad experience around songwriting and sharing your songs. Socially, a bad social experience. I did. And 6th or 7th. Well, it happened both times. Anyway, you have a bad experience socially around sharing your songs. So you are afraid to ever share them. I was going to say, you're afraid to have a bad social experience again. You're afraid to share them. You're afraid to lose friendships. You're over them. You're afraid to be yourself. You're afraid to... I'm just showing you the ways it ripples downward. So it starts at, I had a bad social experience. People were mean to me over something that they had previously been super nice to me about and even asked me to do. So it was like an illogical thing. Like, please share this. Please do this every day before choir. Please come into choir and play a song. Ooh, will you write a song for me? Will you write a song for my friend? Will you do this before choir? It was like I was inside the cool kids. It was just like what happened in 3rd grade, but now here it is happening in 6th and 7th grade. Will you do this? Will you do that? Oh my gosh, it's so cool that she does this. Ah! And all this like loving flood of energy from the cool girls. And then you do that every day, and then like a flip, like a switch. Like, ooh, now it's annoying. Now that's not what we want. I mean, the same way that happens to like people who love a hit song or a TV show, and then they stop liking it, and they're like, oh, that's so last year. Like, I went from you're so this year, you're so now, you're so what we all want to, you're so last year. But I couldn't understand that. I was young, and there was no social media at the time. So the way that creates a fear is, so there's a trauma that happens in those moments. To then suddenly be ousted, disliked. I even had a note written to me that said, you're a sweet girl, but we just don't want to be friends with you anymore, but we wish you the best, and blah, 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 blah. From like the people I spent every weekend with. So it was like life-changing stuff. And a lot of it came down to that, I believe, is that I didn't grow up. I didn't start talking about things that they were talking about. I probably still wanted to like write songs, or like I had a friend, we would like pretend rocks were chalk, and we would make a pretend rock chalk factory, and then we would make pretend circuses, and then we would make pretend, but she lived in Boston, so we weren't always together, or near Boston, but like, and then we would make pretend Ray Bradbury cassette tape shows like in the basement, and we'd make pretend flyers that we were going to give to all the neighbors and say, you can come over if you pay a certain amount, and like come to our spooky lights out Ray Bradbury tapes show in the basement. Like, it was just weird. We were super weird, but I didn't know that weird was like an option. And then we would sit around, and she would sing harmonies to all my original songs, and like I would write them for her sometimes she would make them, and we would just like that kind of stuff. And it wasn't like me being full of myself, it was just like me having this bucket full of songs that we could do as an activity, because we would like do lemonade stands, but like with sterling silver straws, like that kind of, I was still doing that stuff as I got older. And it's like, I think the girls that were very mean to me in 6th and 7th grade had outgrown that kind of stuff, and different lives, I guess. So when they flipped on me, they flipped, and they turned hard, and I was not interesting to them. I mean, I still look like a nerd. I mean, I like being who I am, but I still don't have that look that they had. Like, I love being who I am. Maybe I'm like a theater kid, or just a nerdy, weirdo kid. Bookish, and creative, and playful, but I didn't know how to have self-esteem in that when I was turned on that hard. So anyway, back to the story. Like, imagine you're me, what are you going to deduce from that experience? Like, you're obviously going to have a trauma. But now you have to, I think we need to separate trauma from fear. Over here's the trauma. You got to work through that trauma. That's like a grief experience. And grief experiences can happen on huge things, like the loss of a loved one. They can also happen on tiny things. But that to me wasn't tiny. Social was everything at that age. So it's like I had to work through that experience, but that's the trauma. That does deserve your attention and time. Otherwise, it will just carry with you through your whole life. So I didn't get any help for that, really. I didn't have that type of relationship conversationally with my family, so I just dealt with that. I don't think I had a friend to really talk about that with. I don't think I had an interest in talking about that. Like, it was just a trauma. It felt terrible. And that's here. And you work through that either at that age or slowly over the next few years, or maybe with a therapist or a 12-step group randomly in the future, or maybe just slowly it unfolds throughout your life and you come to terms with it. And that's sort of more, mine's all of the above, sort of. Over here, this is fear. This is like a one and done kind of thing. This is an either or thing. This will grow if you attend to it. And it will take itself out of that moment and put itself in other moments. So now, say you're in a whole other scenario, and I think this is what, like, the concept of being triggered is. Say you're in a whole other scenario, and you haven't even been traumatized yet. Nothing bad has happened. But you've got this ginormous ball of fear that you've been nursing like a wound, or nursing like what's that creepy guy in Lord of the Rings? Like, my pretty. Like, you're nursing it. You're making it bigger. You're attending to it. You keep staring at it. And so now it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Oh my gosh, I'm getting notifications. Anyway, from my therapy app, because it's great. It's called Bloom. It's very cool. Anyway, so now it's getting bigger, and you keep erroneously throwing it into these experiences that don't even have trauma in them yet, because you're looking for these subtle signs of how it could go wrong again. But you're correlating things that don't even necessarily correlate. They might. It could go wrong. But if you think that through your whole life, then what happens is sort of what happened to me, which is that you apply that ginormous fear to everything that resembles the other thing. And so for me, that was sharing my songs. So I have a 3-year chunk where I stopped sharing songs. Then when I went to college, I got to start over. Or maybe that was 5 years. Oh my gosh. I had 2 people I would share songs with in high school. I killed that part of me. I was just like, no. Or I did it still. I wrote a huge, like, 18-song album, but I kept it private. I think I did share it with a third person, I just realized. My first boyfriend was in 5th grade. Hi, Justin. And our lives intersected so many times. Because then we were friends again in high school. He called me out for something in 5th and 6th grade, and he was part of one of those traumas. Sorry, Justin, but I heard through the grapevine that you thought I was a B word because I was being pretty bossy at how I directed the 4-part harmony singing in 5th grade. That scarred me. Anyway, I mean, I probably scarred you, but still, that was hard to find that out, that you thought badly of me for leading. I stopped ever wanting to lead again because of that. I did still lead again, though, but I stopped wanting to. What else? Where was I going with that? Oh, and then so our lives intersected in high school, and I always say Cloudlight is my first band, but my first experience playing with a band was actually because of my 5th grade boyfriend. Now, knowing each other in high school, and he's this amazing violinist, but he was also in a band. I think he played drums in that band, and he invited me to, like, guest in, and I must have showed him my tape. And then he invited me to guest in, but then he thought that the lead singer of that band was threatened by me. So they didn't ask me back, because I had fully formed songs ready for people to work on with me, and the lead singer of that band had poems, and they were just kind of working them out together. And so it's very hard to be super trained and be in a band, I will say that, because there's no way around it. Like, unless you play with people who are also insanely trained, like conservatory level trained, you will be like sitting and waiting while things are being figured out, and You either have to have a great patience for that, or you have to have a belief in some other aspect of them. And at least, you know, in the case of Cloudlight, I have a deep belief in those musicians. So, and I can tell that they elevate the songs. I mean, their parts are beautiful. They're amazing musicians. So, anyway, yeah. So fear. This will grow your whole life long. If every time you have a choice and a fork in the road, love, fear. And by love, I mean, I would love to do this, but if you say, I would love to do that, but, the but is probably a fear. Not but, it's not practical. I can think of ones that don't sound like you're saying, I'm afraid. But it's not practical. But this. But we don't have the money for it. But, you know, and I'm not saying go do a bunch of reckless things, but you could save and you could dream and you could work towards them like a little ladder, and it would give you a path for your life. I'm so rambly and so, like, feeling salesman today. It's really weird. I don't know why either. It's really pretty here. I like this little chunk. There's I think it's the Grand River right over there. And those are some houses. This one's like the only really fancy one. Other one, there was like a dock and a landing. But most of the houses are just like, you know, wonderful, ordinary houses for wonderful, ordinary people. Yeah, it's very cute. Plus, I love yellow houses, so. Anyway, alright, well, I just noticed they have like a Tin Man hanging on their tree. That's a really cute house. Okay, I'm gonna go because I don't know why I'm still rambling and I have other things I want to do today, but I wish you well. Have a great day. Bye.